Welcome back, lovers. Thank you so much for joining us again. We love and appreciate everything you do, and it means so much to have you here with us. This week, as you can see from the title, we will be using our mushroom blocks to create homemade, homegrown oyster mushroom sandwiches. This recipe is fried like traditional fried chicken, but over at Love Health Market, we put the love first, so this is a fully vegan recipe. If you enjoy this recipe, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any of the future content that we put out. But without further ado, let's get into it. This is me, all excited with my mushroom. Now I'm going to show you guys how I regrow mushrooms over and over from the same block. So first of all, you need to make an inch cut from the top right corner to the bottom left corner. That's what you see me doing here. Don't think too hard about how much you're cutting or how deep you're cutting. It's really hard to mess it up at this point. The main thing that I've noticed makes the biggest difference in the results that you get with your oyster mushrooms or any of the mushrooms is how much you spray it. The moisture of the mushroom block is really the determinant in how much, how fast, how vigorous, all of those things that they grow. Look at this cutie. Why are you trying to eat raw mushrooms? Oh, now you want the spray bottle? Nope. Alright, let's get back to what we were doing now that we have a helper. Okay, so you'll see me spraying the heck out of this mushroom block. Like I said, that's the most important thing that you can do to make sure that you have high growth and success in growing your mushrooms. The next thing that I'll be doing is making sure to tape the sides of the box upward to make sure that it has sort of a dome. It's not really a dome, but you just enclose them because after that we'll be putting a plastic laminate over the top of the box. It's just another way to seal in moisture and make sure that the mushrooms are protected because this is a live inoculate. So you don't want to necessarily have anything penetrating or growing itself on the mushroom because that's going to detour what the mushrooms actually are capable of doing. So it's just a protective layer as well as making a secure environment and a moist environment. I also always spray the top of the laminate. This is just another way that you can make sure that your mushrooms have a lot of moisture because moisture is once again the most important key in making sure that your mushrooms grow. Alright, now let's get into the recipe. Oh, and always store it in a dark room temperature corner. You don't want anywhere that's hot or exposed to light. So the first thing that I do is if I've stored my mushrooms in the fridge, typically they start to get a little dry. So I always grab a bowl and put it in some water, or put them in some water, let them rehydrate for a bit, and I always add vinegar to any of my fruits or vegetables to clean them. So that is what you see me doing here. I'll let these sit for about 15 minutes while I get my batter ready. For this recipe, I will not be doing a wet dredge. I personally feel like it is not necessary because mushrooms are already so wet. Having the wet dredge kind of makes them gooey. So I just do a dry batter, and with the dry batter, I'll be putting about 2 cups of spelt flour. I do about a tablespoon of salt. In this recipe, just to keep it easy, used Cajun seasoning and just oregano. But you can put whatever spices that you like. If you want to use black pepper or onion powder or garlic powder, any of those things, I highly recommend it to increase the flavor. I'm using a gallon-sized plastic bag. I typically don't use plastic, but I had this around the house. Either which way, you can use a bowl, however you want to mix up your flour. Just make sure it's nice and blended before you add the mushroom. Also, this part is very important. Make sure if these are homegrown mushrooms, which I hope they are, that you cut off this bottom piece that they cluster and grow together in, because if not, it makes the mushroom very woody at this part. Very tough and pretty much inedible, so make sure you cut that off. I left a little bit of that stalk, I guess, because it was easier to cook it as a whole without all of the little individual pieces of mushroom just floating everywhere. As you can see, the mushroom is completely rehydrated and looking ready to put in our batter. So that is what we're going to do next. I only batter one cluster at a time. This makes sure that each cluster can be sufficiently coated and that every single place has a nice crisp, which is so important when we're trying to get that effect of chicken without eating chicken. The next thing you want to do is make sure you've already got a pot of grapeseed oil or avocado oil, coconut oil. Heat it up so that when you're done battering that mushroom, you can put it right in a pot and get things going. If your pot does not have bubbles, do not put the mushroom. It will just sit and absorb all of that grease, and your mushroom won't be crispy, it will be soggy. So make sure your oil is nice and hot before you put the mushroom. I let it cook for about 7 to 10 minutes on one side before flipping it. I didn't do too much, really. You don't have to watch it like that. The crispier, the better, honestly. So you can just leave it in the oil, let it do its thing. As you can see, when I came back, the top of the mushroom was pretty much already fried. I just flipped it to make sure that it was fried because it does still have flour. But you don't have to be flipping it, checking on it. Just let it do its thing. And as you can see, I'm making sure to get my next cluster already good and floured so that when this one is done, we can just keep the ball rolling. Now, also, as you can see, I'm using a pretty small pot. I would recommend using a small pot so that you're keeping all of the heat in there as you can. But with using a small pot, I only fry it one cluster at a time. I highly recommend not frying too much because you won't be able to make it crispy like you want it. Which, look at that. That is perfect. Absolutely perfect. So, yeah, listen to your girl. Next, we're going to be putting in our other cluster, one at a time. Like I said, if you use a bigger pot and you're going to fry more than one, make sure you have more than enough grease and that grease is more than hot enough to be doing what you're trying to get done. Oh, look at that, like butter. All right, so I already got all of my sandwich toppings ready. I used mayo, Violife cheese, I made a little side salad, I guess, and I just reused that for my sandwich and pretzel buns. When I tell you this recipe and sandwich was so easy to make, I am going to be adding this to my monthly recipes because it was just too easy, honestly. And the fact that the mushrooms were homegrown just made it so much more rewarding. All right, the moment you've been waiting for, that first bite. And oh my goodness, y'all, I'm not even exaggerating. This was the best vegan chicken sandwich I ever had. Easily. You can customize it exactly how you want it. Mine had that perfect spice and crisp and just enough mayo, just enough lettuce, just enough cheese. I'm in heaven. Look at that face. I'm so ready to crush this. So I'll see you guys for the next video. Make sure you smash that like button and hit that subscribe button because you don't want to miss out on any of our future content. All right. Love you.